Hi everyone, my name is Karen, this is my channel RatherBeReading, and today I'm bringing to you my October marked as to read video. So first off, before we get started, I just wanted to take this opportunity to thank Lisa over at Books and Smiles. Lisa recently did a shout out video and gave me a shout out, and that was so lovely of her. If you are past subscribed to my channel, then you know that I absolutely adore Lisa, so it really meant a lot to me that she said such nice things about me in her video, and I just wanted to take the opportunity to welcome all of the new subscribers to my channel. Thank you so much for subscribing, and I hope you enjoy my content. So this series of videos that I do about once a month is a series where I talk about all of the books that I marked as want to read on Goodreads over the past about a month. So let's jump straight in. I've got 16 books that I marked as to read over the month of October because, once again, as always with these videos, I'm a little behind filming, and I will warn you guys right now that the marked as to read video for November will probably be a lengthy one because we're only like halfway, not even halfway through the month at the moment, and I've already marked so many books as to read in November. But let's talk about all the books that I marked as to read in October. The first book that I marked as to read in October was Avalon by Mindy Arnett. This is a book that I have wanted to read for a while. Like, I've been aware of it for a really long time, and I realized this month basically that I just had never marked it as to read, so I did that this month. This is a young adult science fiction about I don't know too much about it except that it's about a group of teenagers who are some kind of like space mercenaries, and I've heard this compared in the past to like a young adult space Fast and the Furious, which that is an intriguing comparison, so hopefully at some point I'll get around to reading this one. The next book I want to talk about is The Party by Robin Harding. So this is one that I actually saw on an Amazon daily deal for Kindle, and the first thing that made me look at it was because last month I marked as to read another book called The Party, and when I first saw it I thought it was that book, but it wasn't. It was this different book with the same title. But when I read the synopsis of this also sounded really interesting. This is an adult literary fiction that follows a couple who, I think they hold a 16th birthday party for their daughter, and I think it's just like a sleepover, like she's just having some kind of like sleepover, like, you know, with her friends, and there's some tragic event that occurs at the party, and that's kind of like what the whole story like revolves around. I don't think you know what the tragic event is. I think it's one of those stories where you're trying to kind of figure out what happened to like have all this devastating effect. Sounds right up my alley and sounds really interesting, and hopefully will be a good read. The next book I want to talk about is a much like older release YA, and that is Made for You by Melissa Ma. This I actually saw, I'd heard about this book a lot like back in the day, but Cassidy Von Shea recently talked about this in a thriller recommendations video. And this is like a YA paranormal thriller, I think, because it's about a girl who wakes up in the hospital and she's survived like a hit and run. I think like someone tried to purposely hit her with their car and kill her, and she realizes that there's someone like that's like after her. But not only that, but since this accident she has developed the ability to foresee someone's death when they touch her. So that's a really intriguing like mashup kind of genres with the thriller and the paranormal. I find that really interesting, and I also I'm really into YA thrillers, and it is a book, like I say, that I used to hear people talk about quite a bit, but I haven't heard anything about in a long time. But I would really like to read this one and see what it's all about. The next book I want to talk about is Bully by Penelope Douglas. This is one that Ash from Ash Hearts Books recommended in a Top 5 Wednesday video that she did on books that she read before BookTube. And it just, the way that she talked about it really made me want to read this one. This is like I believe it straddles the line between young adult and new adult because it's tagged as both on Goodreads. And it's about a boy. I think him and this guy used to be best friends, but they're not best friends anymore. And in fact, this guy has been really bullying him for quite some time since their friendship ended. And I don't really know too much about it apart from that, except I believe it's a romance. I don't know if the romance is going to form between like the bullier and the bullyee. I'm not sure, but the way that she spoke about it sounded really good, and it deals with some really, I believe it's more new adult in the themes that it deals with. Like, it's a lot darker from what I understand, but I'm not 100% sure, but it's definitely got some interesting themes in it. The next book I want to talk about is The Visitors by Catherine Burns. This is a book that I saw on one of the Goodreads blog posts about upcoming releases. I love those Goodreads blog posts. I see so many books on there that I haven't really heard anyone talk about that sounds so interesting. So I'm going to read you the little blurb that they had written on the Goodreads blog post about what it was about. It says, "Read this book if you like thrillers, creepy seaside resorts, mysterious cellars, page-turning plot twists, and suspicious spinsters." And I was like, well, I love all of those things. So then I clicked onto the book and I read the synopsis, and the synopsis sounds creepy AF. So I'm going to read you a little excerpt from the synopsis as well. It says, "A timid spinster in her 50s who still sleeps with teddy bears. Marion does her best to shut out the shocking secret that John keeps in the cellar. Until suddenly, John has a heart attack and Marion is forced to go down to the cellar herself and face the gruesome truth that her brother has kept hidden." Like, what? That sounds so creepy. And if you know me, you know that I love a good creepy read. So this is definitely one that I want to check out. The next book I want to talk about is The Lady's Guide to Petticoats and Piracy by Mackenzie Lee. This is the upcoming, like, I'm not even sure when this is going to be published, release that is the sequel to The Gentleman's Guide to Vice and Virtue, which I read last month and really loved. And this is the sequel that follows, it's like a companion novel that follows his sister Felicity, who was, it wasn't outright said, but it was kind of teased in the first book that she is asexual. So I'm presuming that this is going to have some asexual rep. And all it says on the little blurb on Goodreads so far is narrated by Felicity and featuring travel, pirates, and a science girl gang. So I loved the first book, so I definitely want to check out this sequel about Felicity. Next, I want to talk about The Nowhere Girls by Amy Reed. This is a book that, this and the next book are both books that I first saw on the, I don't know if you guys get it. Do you guys get the young adult newsletter from Goodreads? And it has the cover contest. I love the cover contest. I love voting on which cover I really enjoy. And there were two books on there that I really liked the covers of and I hadn't heard of prior to that. And the first one was Nowhere Girls by Amy Reed, as I said. And this one is a young adult novel about, I think it's about one girl or a group of girls who decide to take revenge against a boy who raped one of them or one of their friends or something. That is right up my alley. You'll know if you've been watching my channel in the past, and if you don't, you'll know now. I am very interested in books about rape culture and rape culture just generally. I find that a very fascinating and important topic in today's world. So this one was right up my alley, and as soon as I read the synopsis, I immediately marked it as to read. The next book, also from that YA cover contest on Goodreads, was The Hanging Girl by Eileen Cook. So this is a interesting one. It's about a girl who is helping the police with a kidnapping case in her town, and she's helping them as like a town psychic who does tarot readings, and she assumes this is going to be a really easy case to help with because she's always faked her tarot readings, like she's a fake psychic, and she has inside knowledge on this case because she helped stage this kidnapping. It was all just supposed to be a prank. So I don't know if it's a prank in that the girl who's been kidnapped is also in on it, or if it was a prank on the girl who's being kidnapped. I'm not 100% sure. But then it all starts to take a turn when she realizes that maybe the kidnapping is a bit more legit than what she had thought, and then she's got to kind of figure out what the heck's going on. So really interesting concept, sounds right up my alley, and like definitely something I want to check out. Next, we have 6 Stories by Matt Wesolowski. So this is one that I saw Lala from over at Books and Lala talking about in a wrap-up. And it sounds like your kind of standard mystery thriller in that it's about trying to figure out what happened around the death of a teenage boy, but the concept of like the way the story is told sounds really interesting. So it's told, I think it's supposed to be kind of like a podcast. So you're getting 6 different stories from like 6 different like witnesses or people involved in the case of them telling their story of what they know about it. And I think as the 6 stories kind of come together, you're going to kind of figure out what happened. Like that concept just sounds really interesting to me, and Lala had really good things to say about it. So this is definitely one I want to check out. Next, we have another book that is a like really far off 2018 release. I think this is like a June or July release for 2018. And that is The Cheerleaders by Cara Thomas. So I don't know anything about this except that the author posted a picture of the cover, which will as always be here, and it's a cheerleading skirt covered in blood, and she posted that picture on Twitter, and I was just like immediately like, yeah, I'm gonna read that, and when marked it as to read. I presume it's gonna be about cheerleaders dying or some kind of slasher thing involving cheerleaders. I don't know, I don't care. I will definitely read this book. I marked another book as to read by Cara Thomas last month, Little Monsters, and there's another book by her that I've wanted to read for a long time. I think that one's called The Darkest Corners. So Cara Thomas is definitely an author that I need to check out some books from. The next book I want to talk about is The Window by Amelia Brunskill. Now, this is one that I actually saw because there was a giveaway going on for it on Goodreads, and it is another young adult mystery thriller. If you cannot tell that I enjoy mystery thrillers, then yeah, I really love a good mystery thriller. And this one is about two twin girls, and if you didn't also know, twins is a massive buzzword for me. I love books about twins. I just find that whole like twin thing like really fascinating because I really wanted to be a twin when I was a kid. So this is about two twin sisters who are really, really close, but they're very different. I think one of them is like the more outgoing, you know, bubbly twin, and then there's the more quiet, introverted twin. And the outgoing twin she dies. I think she dies she falls out the window of her house, like while she's trying to leave the house in the night, and the sister doesn't know where she was going or what was going on, and then starts to realize that maybe there's a lot about her twin sister that she didn't know, and she's kind of trying to figure out what the heck was going on. Yeah, that just sounds right up my alley. Next, I have Follow Me Back by A.V. Geiger. This is one that I saw Lovely Like Laura did a book review of this on her channel, and the whole premise of this I just thought was very like prevalent in today's society, and it just sounded really, really interesting. So it's about a boy who is like a pop sensation, I think, in the world, like basically like the Justin Bieber of like their, you know, of the book. And he's super, super popular, and people absolutely go on and about him online. And the main girl character in this book is I think an agoraphobe who is she's agoraphobic, and so she's confined to her home, but she absolutely loves this pop star and like follows him online and everything. And his PR team are constantly like, you know, really stoking the flames of this and like putting all this like sensationalist stuff on about him, and just really like making these fans really crazed about him. And then there is another pop star that is, I think, killed like by his fans. Something happens and his fans like end up killing him, and this pop star decides that he wants to like fight back against this, and so he decides to troll one of his biggest like Twitter followers, I think, which is the main character of the book. And somehow they end up forming this kind of relationship online, and then they decide to meet up in real life, and things all kind of go to shit. I think it's like a mystery, like it's like a thriller-ish book. I don't know, just the whole concept of like it being about someone being trolled online by his fans and then trying to troll his fans, that whole thing just sounds really interesting, because it is definitely a lot about what goes on in today's society. And Laura just made it sound really, really interesting, so it's definitely something that I want to check out. Next, we have An Enchantment of Ravens by Margaret Rogerson. So this has been getting quite a bit of buzz lately, but the first person I kind of saw really talking about it was Riley from over at Riley Marie. And it's a young adult fantasy, which is not, I mean, I do enjoy the occasional fantasy and all of those because I do read quite widely, but I don't read a lot of this type of young adult fantasy, because this sounds to me very, very similar to A Court of Thorns and Roses, which I haven't read, but is on my TBR for this month. So it's about a girl who, there's like the Fae world, which I think everyone must know about, and then her world, and she's not Fae, but the Fae can't do anything that's considered like creating or making or anything like that. So they come to her, and she paints paints portraits, and the Autumn Prince, who's like this really like he's a prince, he's really important, comes to her for her to paint his portrait, and she paints human sorrow into his eyes or something. And when he goes back to the court, like shit hits the fan, because no one, like, it really puts his position in jeopardy, because he can't be seen to be feeling human emotion. And so he comes back to take her back to like his court of the Fae, I guess to like punish her or keep her prisoner because of this whole thing. And I believe it's going to be a romance, but Riley really had good things to say about it, and it's just sounded really intriguing. It has been getting a bit of buzz, so I don't know when I would eventually end up reading this. It's probably like a really long time away, but it is something that intrigued me this month. The next book I marked as to read is A Line in the Dark by Melinda Lowe. I actually first saw this one because there was a giveaway going on Twitter, and so I had a look at the book on Goodreads because the cover like was really intriguing. And this is I think it's a young adult, like really dark contemporary with like LGBT QAA plus themes, because I believe it's about two girls who are best friends, and I'm not sure what their exact sexual orientation is, but they are both interested in women in some way, whether they're pansexual, lesbian, bisexual, I'm not sure, but they are both interested in girls, and one of them is in love with the other, like in secret. You know, she's in love with her best friend, but it's two girls. So I found that really interesting. And then her best friend starts falling in love with this other girl, and they get kind of drawn into this other girl's world, because this other girl goes to like this boarding school, I think, and so she gets drawn in with all of like what's going on at the boarding school and all of her friends. And I think it's really like, there's a lot of like cruelty and a lot of like that going on within the boarding school, and it's like I think it's just going to deal with some dark things. I think there might be some mystery aspects in there, but I'm not 100% sure. The whole thing, even just the fact that it was about being in love with your best friend, kind of trope, but it was two girls, I really like enjoyed that, like wanted to check that out, but it just sounds really, really interesting. The final two books that I marked as to read are both books that were recommended, like that Lisa rated really highly in one of her wrap-ups, and basically any book that Lisa enjoys, I want to read because I adore Lisa. And the first of those is Eleanor, Oliphant is Completely Fine by Gail Honeyman. I'm really vague on kind of what this is actually about. I believe it's about it's an adult literary fiction, and it's about a woman who I think maybe, and I apologize if I'm incorrect in this assumption, has some form of autism maybe, and her life is like kind of not really going anywhere. And then I think she meets this man when they help save this other, I think, older man, and then all three of them kind of form this like friendship and help each other through their like kind of loneliness and that type of thing. So I don't know, Lisa basically had good things to say about it, and that made me want to read it. And the final book that I want to talk about this month, which is another one, as I mentioned, that Lisa spoke about on her channel, is Emma in the Night by Wendy Walker. This is a thriller, I believe. A thriller, who'd have thunk? And this is about, it kind of sounds like almost like a bit tropey, the synopsis, because it's about two sisters who go missing and one sister returns, you know, that whole kind of trope, two go, one comes back. But I believe it's about when the one sister returns and the other doesn't, there's a forensic psychologist, I think it is, who's looking into what happened, and she starts to discover that there's all this kind of like dark stuff going on within the family of the two girls. And then I think the last line of the synopsis says something like, yeah, it says, and where one sister's return might just be the beginning of the crime. And I was like, oh, what does that mean? So that sounds really intriguing. As I said, Lisa had good things to say about it, and that is basically enough for me. So those were all of the books that I marked as to read in the month of October. As always, I will have a link to all of the books mentioned, as well as all of the booktubers that I took recommendations from over the month of October, linked down below for you guys. I would love to chat in the comments down below if you've read any of these books, if you have any thoughts or any books that you've been getting super excited about, or if you've got any recommendations for me. Because if you can't tell, I love marking books as to read. That thrill and excitement that I get when I see a book, even when I'm not buying it, I just see a book online, I think, oh, that sounds so awesome, I want to read it, and I click that to read button. Just gives me such a thrill. So I would love to chat in the comments down below. Please like this video if you liked it. Please subscribe if you want to see more from my channel. But that's all I've got from this video today. Bye guys!